So I revisited the Aspire BDC after my review. The Aspire BDC has been raved about by a lot of people. You know what? I just didn't have that experience. I tried out 10 coils. I only had a 40% success rate. It made me wonder, you know what? Maybe it's the way the manufacturer of the Aspire BDC builds their coils. I went into the coil heads that performed just subpar, and I found out the way they build those suckers sucked a big wanker. It just looked like on those failed coils, the leads were all crossing, they were all touching each other, which can cause a short, hot spots, bad stuff, okay? I went in, I rebuilt this bad boy, and I'll tell you what, she came to life. Flavor is as good as a Kanger Pro tank, if not better. The gurgle is still there just because the way these cups are engineered, and it's the same concept as the Kanger heads, but a little bit different. But you know what? I found it's all due to the way this manufacturer is wrapping their coils, and it's not good. Poor at best. So this video, I'm going to show you guys how to rebuild the Aspire BDC. If you're watching this, you've tried the Aspire BDC, it wasn't for you, you had a shitty experience, you might want to pull her out and give her a go, because this thing is hitting great. I mean, the vapor production is great. Flavor for a clear miser is really good. I still get the gurgle, but you know what? That's just gonna happen until they re-engineer it. Right now, I've got her at 9.5 watts on this Vamo V5. I'm gonna take her up to 13.5 watts, okay? I've got a 50-50 juice in here. Flavor's not bad, it's actually pretty good. It's not like an RDA or rebuildable or anything, but the way this coil head was stock, the coil that I rebuilt in here is 4 to 5 times better. So if you're watching this, you got an Aspire BDC, you had a similar experience like I did, a very low success rate, and you're looking for the vape experience that someone like P. Basardo had, stick around. I'll show you how to rebuild it. I find that still between 9 and 10 watts, this coil vapes at its best, but you could take it up to 13.5 watts, get a warmer vape. You just can't chain vape it like that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, dive down. I'm gonna show you guys how to rebuild this sucker. All that gravy. Let's go. You're gonna need 2 6-inch pieces of 32 gauge Kanthal, your Aspire BDC coil head, a pair of pliers, tweezers, a needle, some nail clippers or scissors, and you're ready to rock and roll. So you remember how I mentioned in my Aspire BDC review how I couldn't get the barrel off of the head? Well, I found a solution, and it's an easy solution. Takes only a second. Screw your head back into your base. Okay, make sure it's completely tight. Screw the base into a mod. Take your pliers, clamp down on the head barrel. All you gotta do is just pull it off. Easy peasy, what a sleazy. All right, that's the inside of the head, and as you can see, you've got one overlapping the other. Instead of these sitting side by side, they're crossed over each other. Pull this pin out, and before we move any further, here's the barrel. As you can see, there's the filler right there. You want to leave that filler in here, okay? You don't want to touch that filler. The good news is once you take this barrel off, it makes it easier to disassemble this head. So we've taken the pin out. Here's one lead from one coil. Here's another lead from the other coil. And then on the outside, isolated from both those leads, are one lead from one coil, one lead from the other coil. On the coil heads that are shorting out, that give me the dry burnt, scratchy hit, that are very inconsistent, they're just thrown together really wrong. This is the coil that I was vaping on in my review, which I mentioned vaped pretty damn well. Everything is isolated from one another. This coil is isolated from this coil. Just like I showed you, the leads are all isolated from the inside and on the outside, and that's why this coil head vapes well. About 60% of the other Aspire BDC coil heads that I've disassembled, that I've used, those coil heads did not look like this. And those are the coil heads that vaped horrible. And it's because the leads crisscrossed. And when you crisscross your leads and those leads are touching each other, you're gonna get a short. You're gonna get a dry, scratchy hit. It's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be a pleasant vape at all. But the good news is, hey, you could rebuild it. And I'm gonna show you how to do it. I'm gonna show you how to get this bad boy back on track and vaping great. So I'm gonna take this stopper out. I'm going to try to get it out as gentle as I can. And there are all your leads. The key is to get these leads completely isolated from one another. Take one coil out. See how it's sitting on that one? Alright. So I've got 2 pieces of silica. I highly recommend using 2mm silica when doing this build. So I've got my silica pressed against my needle to use as support. And with this 32 gauge Kanthal, I'm going to do 5 wraps. You want to make sure that your wraps are as close together as possible. You want to even those coils out a little bit, make sure these leads are as straight as possible. That's 1 coil down, 1 more to go. Okay, repeat the process, 5 wraps with this 32 gauge Kanthal. Straighten out those leads. In my left hand, here's one of the old wicking coils, and you're going to make sure that you clip the edge of this wick the exact same size as the one in my left hand. It's got to be the exact same size. That way it can wick efficiently to the coil. So all I'm going to do is line them up just like that and clip them. Okay, I'm going to repeat the process on this other side. All we're going to do is duplicate the other wick. Alrighty, we got both wicking coils ready to rock and roll. Here's the cup. We're going to insert the first wick in to line with these slots, and then the second wick to line with those slots. Okay, pull that bad boy in there just like that. Okay, so these 2 leads have to be isolated from each other, cannot be touching. Same goes for the other leads and the other coils. So you see the 2 spaces, one down here, one up there. That's where the other 2 leads from the other coil is going to go. Okay, and it's going to go cross. Just like that. Okay, it's going to be sitting on top just like that. Clip these edges a little bit, clean her up. Repeat that on the other side. So the next step, and here's the tricky part. For the top coil, here's one lead right here that I'm tapping on, and here's the other lead. Bottom coil, here's one lead, and here's one lead. Here's the rubber stopper. One lead from one coil is going to go in the center, and one lead from the other coil is going to go in the center. What I'm going to do, this lead from the top coil and this lead from the bottom coil is going to go in the center of that insulator. This lead from the top coil and this lead back here from the bottom coil is going to go on the outside of the insulator. You want to make sure that this lead from the top coil and this lead from the bottom coil is isolated from this lead from the top coil and this lead from the bottom coil. This lead and this lead. Okay. So as you can see, the 2 leads in the center are going down the center of the insulator, and the 2 leads on the outside are going on the outside of the insulator. Hold the coils up top and gently press this insulator Okay, looks kind of like a spider. All I'm going to do is pull on these leads a little bit, tighten up those coils just a little bit up top. All the leads that need to be isolated from each other are isolated from each other. Next step we're going to do is we're going to put the pin in there. Okay, so here's the pin. Make sure you hold those coils at the top before placing the pin in there. Alrighty. Everything is assembled What I like to do is clip them. I don't like to pull and tug and break these leads off, because then you're risking messing up your coils up top, okay? Clip them, each one just like that, as close as I can get. Alright, so we got everything reassembled. Both coils are assembled in the cup. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to screw this coil head back into the base of the Aspire BDC. You want to make sure that the edges of each wick are clipped to the edges of this cup, just like that. So we're just going to saturate the wick and coil. Now, you do not want to dry burn this coil, okay? Because if you do, you're going to burn the insulator, and if you burn that insulator, you're going to get a burnt plastic hit, and that burnt plastic hit will last a long time. That's why we saturate this bad boy. Make sure it's good and saturated. Taking it to 13 watts just to check to see if it fired. Next step, you got to be gentle. See that filler right there? You don't want to push that filler up. You want to make sure that filler stays flush on the inside of that cup, because that's how it feeds to those coils. I'm going to flatten this sucker out. Make sure that the filler on the inside is as flush as possible. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these holes on each side. There's two holes, one on this side and one on this side. We're going to line it up with that big slot right there, and you want to be gentle. Okay, and we're looking at somewhere between 1.4 and 1.5 ohms. Booyah! We're going to fill this bad boy up. Pop the drip tip back in there. Let's go ahead and take it back to the original screen. So I hope that helps. That is how to rebuild your Aspire BDC tank. Like I said, I went through all my bad coil heads for this tank and I rebuilt them, and they performed like 4 to 5 times better. You just got to know how to rebuild it, and you got to follow those steps I just showed you in the vid. This is Rip Trippers. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to comment below. And remember, smoking is dead, vaping is the future, and the future is now.